Shirley here with Serious Dallas Moon. While we caretake for an episode that perhaps has began a series, which I called Beyond the Blood. In this episode, the first episode, I basically describe how the living conditions, upbringing, extreme abuse as initiation and or training creates certain behaviors, perceptions, and patterns, both societal and communal and individual, that lay the foundation for over-reliance on things like bloodline, DNA, targeting people by DNA, which I believe was the case not only of Tanya Khun, but also of Cassandra. With Cassandra cases simply received that they want your bloodline, and basically the patent of creation of something like a child sex offender, a serial killer, which is designed by prolonged torture to basically sustain a person that is in an important position in a web of, or a network of, or a ring of offenders, with the intention to extort people, and this goes by manufacturing people that would want to offend, and this manufacturing is happening by torture. People are targeted by particular bloodlines. Sometimes there is fear that a certain bloodline kills other bloodlines, and this is exactly the core premise that I come to refute with this series. And I know there were a lot of experiments with breeding of various predatory lineages. However, I set the claim and sent the foundation of the claim that it is the torture, the prolonged torture, without ability to die, without ability to get out of the settings, that perpetuates the behaviors. And this is the foundation for both the recovery of people that survived cults, like Melissa. Sorry, for Melissa, I think was murdered. I said Melissa because of the case of Melissa's father, who did not want Mark Dutroux to talk about a network. But this is foundation that is essential for both people that survived such networks to recover, because right now entire medical, psychological, political residents and any type of job opportunities is completely annihilating them from being able to make a living and live and recover without participating in crime. And this creates what I call the smugness, or the belief that one can get away with. And indeed, when we see, I don't know, Epstein, is he in Israel? Is he this? Is he that? Those things are all sustaining that sense of getting away with a crime that the child self never asked to commit. And it was only the torture that caused the manipulation on the life energy, beliefs that love, wealth, abundance comes from outside sources, and one needs to commit crimes to access those are created by a by design society that basically rewards evil and makes those who go against evil feel helpless, futile, um, and so on and so forth. Now, the topic of blood here is important because whether a person becomes expendable child in a network or is getting the chance to grow, and even then, it's only by committing really terrible atrocities and to the people that they care about the most, by the way. It's a treason. For those who see the hand gesture of the two fingers crossed, is basically treason. Which the community members are obliged to commit. As far as I understood, for the case of Tanya Khun, there can be that such a thing was involved. And I could literally hear, I don't know, Peter Adefris, I see for the show, and I hear Peter says, "Hey, it's the truth." So, whether it's somebody that is kind of like a third party between me and the figure when I channel, or it's actually because I don't attempt to channel. It's kind of like I see it and then I see him think that's the truth. um, or basically, it's the truth can be the network to do with the truth. So, and I think that was the case also when his daughter Kelly basically said a lot of the what people call paranormal clues are quite accurate. So yes, I myself find sometimes astrology being remarkable in tending to reality, cold cases, and so on. But without a framework of reference, we would not even be able to correctly interpret the astrology. And this is what this series is about. The over-reliance on DNA patterns, bloodline, the targeting of bloodlines, is a result of the torture more so than any type of breeding that could have been with various groups of predators or now that is not to say that people don't have various types of aggressions and so on and so forth, or respond differently to different situations, and yet the question of what can we do with that infant or with that child, or what people call the question of evil, has more to do with the setting that sustains only the most evil. But even then, there is a lot of randomness. Anneke Lucas, in her interviews, and I believe also in her book, attempts to purchase the book, caused attempts to kidnap me. So, so yeah. So I purchased a digital copy of the book, but it was left for the other phone. But then the other phone was tapped, so I don't know. But here's the thing: she says in one of the cases, it was her and a young boy. The young boy was supposed to be raped, and she was supposed to be murdered. But then the young boy was doing something, and he was too slow. The person that was supposed to rape him, mainly keep him alive, was also too slow, and he wanted to kill this quality in him, and this way he killed the boy and raped Anneke Lucas. And even when she described of when she was crying and so on, that the person that raped her and killed the boy thought that she was sad only because of what happened to her, and not, but actually because of what happened to the boy. Over nothing, he was supposed to be the living person. So we can see how random the question of life and death, and with people at such young age being exposed to this randomness, cruelty, with only outlet not just to perpetuate, but there's a ritual they do where they have to show that they really, really want to be there. And we're talking about an 11, 12 years old person, sometimes younger, that has to show that they choose to be there, and they have to demonstrate it by cruelty. In fact, one of the attempts that Annika Lucas describes, to where she had to pass that test, she basically, the programmer of her, the torturer of her, noticed that that she was delaying in the cruelty, but that delay was from hesitation and not from other cruelty, not from rejoicing, for example, at the cruelty, and they thought that the experiment went wrong. When we understand such things, and when we understand that this is training both for healthcare professional, even astrologers, particularly as astrology becomes more prominent, as the divination professions become more and more publicly recognized as valuable to cold cases. Um, and by the way, perhaps there was intention to do such things with me, and it was only my ability to somehow find a place to stay where I don't have to be raped or rape children, although I was also raped and I still deal with attacks towards me, that caused that change. But otherwise, maybe you would hear about me in Shirley dossiers or something like that. And this is exactly what the message that I'm trying to bring with this series. The reliance on genetics, epigenetics, DNA, bloodline, physiognomy. And while physiognomy definitely can show trauma that person went through, also the voice, um, the over reliance on those, or even astrology. I see people that analyze charts and see, yeah, this person can be very lustful, and that would be, for example, Lilith in the first house. Lilith in the first house is not a lustful person, but it's the woman that would not be subjugated within the context of what basically this type of torturing. Then the person learns that the only power is to be seductive, and the person also is missing love that is actually loving, is not from a bond, and is not a love that is loving but in the context of a bait. Then they can eroticize things that are completely non-erotic, as I discussed in the first episode. This acknowledgement that I'm speaking about can be very important for people that are survivors, recovering, people that are survivors of ritual abuse. If they were in the physical ceremonies, they very likely had to be offenders. Otherwise, they would not be alive. And it means they had to rape, it means they had to murder. Otherwise, they would not manage to be alive. And They can have even dissociation from that. In fact, the point is that they would have dissociation from that. Anya Wick talks about the dissociation. Nearly every interview of ritual abuse survivor has a segment where somewhere around their life, sometimes around their 40s, which is Rao return astrologically speaking, can even be 50s with Chiron returns. It can be a Uranus square, or it can be outer planets transits. Okay, some particular transit, Saturn return, Saturn maturation, and they can spark off, or even Neptune square, Pluto square, Neptune square. Yes, Neptune is degree away from my Neptune square now. Neptune Rahu, Saturn Rahu. That can definitely be reasoning for a spike up, a memory, something that people were dissociated from. And when we bring all these things together with the infiltration of the academic institutions at the junctures where people could comprise, even with astrology, they try to regulate the field, when the regulation would necessitate committing certain atrocities. And I know for sure that at least some of my colleagues had to commit terrible atrocities, some of them even towards me. There was even an attempt to sacrifice me. By the way, under some excuse to do with Ares, one of the attempts was. Um, Again, some of them helped to prevent that, but this is a part of the training to have a certain position in society. For that position is supposed to be looking at the people as sheeple that can be depopulated and that are something to derive resources from. However, this is also happening within families. This series exposes those biases that prevent people from access to recovery, which prevents them from being not criminal. And at this time where the cashing in on extortion calls is happening, where it's both the extortion and the disposal of people under, for example, crimes against humanity jurisdiction, when the people were extorted. There was a Jewish organization that trafficked women to the Nazis, and then later the Jews execute, for example, Eichmann, although they extorted the Nazis to commit the crimes and loot basically the wealth of other Jewish families and other families. This is the meaning of extortion cults. Okay, and this is why recovery from rape was so challenging, because it is exactly what allows both the mind control, the dissociation, the identity fragmentation, and to loot a person. Because if a person, one would say, yeah, we believe them that they will rape and so on and so forth, something happened, but under the guise of psychiatry, attempt to loot their ability to have residence, viable income, and so on and so forth. Let's see if the episode is episoding. Yes! With BitChute. So the over-reliance on, now I do not underestimate DNA, various Mars types, various bloodlines. However, the C factor that nobody is talking about is the fact that people can take a person, put them to torture without ability to die, without ability to let out, and they get an output: sex offender, child molester, serial killer, criminal against humanity. And that input and output is a patent that without discussing, uh, people just leave it at, yeah, of course the pedophile has raped, but not all the people that are raped become pedophiles. This is the C factor. Did they have ability to die or to get away from the cult? That was a viable ability. Put in a 12 years old or 11 years old child. One time when I was 5 or 6, my mother really got pissed off at me because I was this type of child that has no God, including Antichrist. Okay, a child. I'm not particularly rebellious, but nobody can be authority. And my mother got so pissed. She says, "If you don't like it here, open the door. You can go out. You can." Of course, the child. Now, what can happen is one of two things. One child becomes childish, irrational, gets the fuck out. Either they get molested or they become a Mark the True or something of that sort. Because the child would obviously be missing, their ego would not allow them to return to the parent, and the parent is angry at the child. When I was cat sitter one time, there was a lady that was channeling her cat, and the cat, of course, he doesn't know me. He went out and he stayed out. Lady leaves him, and then she got pissed that he got out. So she knew to channel him, but for the cat to return, they had to have a conversation. And so I asked her, because she was very angry at the cat, and I said, listen, I had to remediate the anger between them, and then the cat was appeased, and he said, I will come back at Friday at this hour, and indeed, in that hour, he came back, I heard the mew, I thought I was imagining, and then later I opened the door, and the cat entered, and everything was okay. It was by the trash cans, just demonstrating ego, and she, of course, was angry at the cat demonstrating ego. These are the type now. Another scenario that can happen, which was the scenario that happened with me, I saw an open door, but I'm not actually able to exit the door because I cannot. How come you tell me that I have a choice? The door is open, but I'm 5 years old. Do I have a residence? Do I have food? Do I have? I cannot trust people to take care of me, and um, and then I was in situations where I got the fuck out, and they tried to make it a death state. Now, at the age I'm 40, I'm going to be 42 this year. Probably they were not seeking a child sex elite whatnot. Probably they wanted me to be a Ghislaine Maxwell. For housing. And the attempt to basically the astral rape and the torture of me was to try to make me susceptible to mind control. So I said, kill the rapists, bodies of rapists, dead bodies. But what could I do? Now, when we understand these things, we understand how war crimes are created. And we also understand that the blood here plays less of a role than the conditions that can sometimes be incredibly random. Some guy was sensitive about him being slow and the child was being slow. I said, okay, no, this guy child I killed. That random. Um, and this is important because it is dissociation of tune that causes to over rely on concepts like DNA or blood or bloodline. And then people are targeted by these bloodlines because certain people believe, oh, this bloodline kills that bloodline. And not at all. Basically, they are worried over nothing. Or they say, oh, this bloodline is from us. And then they try to train a person to become, okay, war criminal, to get them smug about what getting away with. And then when they don't want to get away with, when they don't want to commit that big atrocity, they usually are assassinated. Um, and the attempts to keep silence at all costs, but even the souls of the offenders already want it out. If you think about the Marc Dutroux, very likely, even if it is the last thing he does, he would probably want to release the Dutroux dossiers list. This is why a month ago, suddenly they found pedophilia materia in his cell. How did it get there? Did the magazines teleported to? Well, the tools to curate not only Marc Dutroux, but also his victims. And this is the money line, because the victims don't have access to healing. And that is by design. When we get that, we understand that trying to put a bloodline, origin, culture, race, DNA tag on, or even physiognomy, and definitely physiognomy shows us, but what it shows us is what the person went through, and sometimes how it shaped it. And without abolishing these practices, we will keep generating extortion cults and violence that is beyond impossible to live with. Um, However, when we address this, we basically uh, nullify the logic of extortion cults, which means create an offender, get the offender really smug about, create an offender by torturing them, not allowing them to live or die, and forcing them to be torturer. Then test if that person really shows the ability to demonstrate that they really want to be there, to, or manages to develop joy at feeling free at being an offender, feeling free at prison, and feeling joy at causing harm, or feeling life full at killing. um, and basically, once manufactured offenders, get offenders to extort offenders, get them to loot, get them to feel really smug about being able to get away with the crimes that, to begin with, they never wanted to commit. It is only the torture that brought the, if you think about the 18th degree, which is degree of toxicity, what people call degree of pure evil. Um, a person went through pure evil, now they need to purge it from the system. If they get them to purge it from the system on an innocent person, and they don't allow the transmutation, because there are actually rituals to transmute energy, or to throw it into the energy, but to ask for it to be transmuted, not to make it felt by another person. And the role of society is actually very important here. Um, and once people feel smug about getting away because they've lost the access to the part of them that to begin with never wanted to commit that crime. And they can be, and of course they are beyond judgmental to themselves, but they have to dissociate from that judgment so that they are free, supposedly, of the social contracts, in hope that that will make them, let's say, not have PTSD or something. And they are also seen as winners, and they present themselves as society as heroes and benevolent. Um, so once that's done, they smug, they this, they did that, they did that. Then they begin the trials over crimes against humanity, and this is where basically they either die as a saint, a messiah, or saint, or somebody was glorified in a certain way, um, or they are. It's kind of like, and then from outside the circles, the legacy would be kind of like Eichmann, or although not always the case. In the case of saints, they were glorified as saints also aside the community. Um, Now, emphasis on the bloodline or the blood keeps us suppressing what the actual way that that evil is created. It causes persecution, enables persecution, and plays into the hand of extortion cults. And it keeps people from healing and recovering, preventing actual world peace and human rights, and its funding, because all of these extortions, they are meant not to normalize rape or to normalize this, but to loot the energy and the wealth of each individual person that has a life energy with their survival needs met, whether it's land, house, ability, freedom of movement, and so on and so forth.